Welcome to the Underground.
Turn me up, bitch!
My Little Underground with Peter A.
It's My Little Underground. I'm Peter A. Make sure you're subscribed anywhere you get podcasts. And be sure to follow me on socials at MLU Pod. And you can also support My Little Underground for as little as $1 a month. Link is in the description and on peteraradio.com. And today on the show, we have Melissa Recarte. She's the CEO of Ricky's Compass, a 501c3 dedicated to shattering the stigma surrounding mental health. And Melissa is also a 6th grade teacher in the Morris School District in New Jersey. And we talked about what it's like teaching in the age of COVID and so much more right here on My Little Underground.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, and as you know, I love all the work you've been doing with Ricky's Compass. You're a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to shattering the stigma surrounding mental health in honor of your late brother Ricky, who passed by suicide. And I consider myself an honorary member of the group because I do support everything you guys do. So I want to ask you. This is, I know it's a rough time for you, and I was talking to Alexis too about this September is a rough month for you. So because your brother passed 3 years ago this month. As we're recording this, it's September. So how are you holding up mentally with everything? Are you okay? You doing all right?
Yeah, thanks for asking. You are like an honorary member. We love like all your support. We appreciate you. So that's why I'm so happy to be here. But yeah, this September particularly was like a different month because, I started like teaching. So like that has taken up so much of my headspace that we were in a meeting on Tuesday for Ricky's Compass, and Lex was like, we were like planning out all our social media posts. And so we planned out this week, and then she's like, yeah, and then we'll post about Rick on Monday. And then I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, Monday is September 21st. I was like, it's 3 years. And it just like hit me, and I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah, so I think that, when I really like slow down to think about it, um, of course I get sad. It's definitely a difficult time. Um, but I think all the work that we do as an organization, it really like, gives meaning and purpose, and it, keeps Ricky's legacy alive. So that brings me so much joy.
And since the start of COVID, you've been seeing a therapist. Is that right?
Yes.
What is that? Why did you do that? Is it because you just needed a mental checkup, or was there a specific reason?
Yeah, so I I've been to therapy before, so I think the first time we actually like went, because I've been forced by like my parents when I was like a freshman in high school. Um, and that was like whatever to me because I didn't want to go. But the first time where I decided for myself that I was like, hey, I think I really should go was when Rick first passed, like exactly 3 years ago. And now recently I just decided to go again because like my life back in March just like totally tailspinned. Um, so I had just graduated college, and then I got a job right away as a teacher in 5th grade, doing special ed. So that was hard because it was like, the first time I'd ever been in the classroom, and then all of a sudden it like went all virtual. And I was like, I barely know how to teach in person. Like, how do they expect me to teach virtually with like students that I barely know? And it's not only that I barely know, but they have like these disabilities, and I have to keep up with their IEPs. And I was in grad school, and I had just ended like an important relationship to me, and I just felt like I was like losing control of my life, because I'm a perfectionist. So when something um, goes out of order for me, or like it wasn't as I planned, I have a very difficult time being like, okay, that's okay, you keep going, that's just a bump in the road. So I went to therapy to, just kind of like you said, I like how you put it, like just a tune up, like, hey, put your life in perspective. You have a job, you're in school, you're doing all these things, like you are the only one putting these um kind of like negative feelings on yourself. Nobody else is telling you that.
And I feel like with Ricky's Compass, I think you're providing that, whether you know that or not, because the Zoom chats you've been hosting since the breakout of COVID have really helped me kind of tune up because everyone is feeling this. There was a certain level of uncertainty about either your job or more importantly your health. So,
Hmm.
what was your idea, or you three, you Giselle and Lex? What was your idea for these Zoom chats? Just kind of um, providing company for people who might need it during this time, or what?
Yeah, so actually, when we would get onto like our FaceTime chats with each other and just like talk about meetings, we would end up having like 3 hour meetings, and then like towards the last hour, it would just be us like just catching up and chatting about life and talking about things that like are not COVID related or not like um you know the extreme stresses of life. We would just talk and we would hang out, and even though we weren't like physically together, it was just so nice to talk to a friend and to just let out whatever you were feeling. We were like, hey, like I think this would be helpful to people, like, just even if it's a space for them to talk about their stresses, I think it's like a fun thing to do. We can't go out and like hang out with each other, so might as well just host it in a Zoom. So it just came out of our personal like little bubble, and we were like, hey, we should just share this with people.
And I absolutely loved them. I think it was great. And I remember when I joined the first one of the first questions you guys asked the room, I think it was at the time, it was just me, Lex, and you and Giselle. But you guys just asked, so how you guys are, kind of dealing with, mental health. Like how do you guys, keep yourself sane, I guess. And that was a very important question because there's a lot of little things that I do to keep myself sane. Like I run and play some video games and podcasts, listen to lots of music. And it's just nice to hear that, to talk about that. So, how do you kind of, keep yourself level?
So, lately, like back when we were like in strict quarantine, something that my mom and I would always do is we would just like, as soon as she got back from work, she'd be like, "Hey, let's go for a car ride," and we would literally just drive around town or like drive where I live, Route 10. We would just like drive to Dover and back. That was like a big stress relief for us. We just love to drive in the car. Um, I love to walk my dog. I love to watch YouTube. I like to hit up Taco Bell.
Yes, yes.
Yes, all those little things like, that just took me out of working and back to like, hey, slow down. Just, you got to make the most of what it is right now. So that's what I did.
Yeah, me and you are in the same boat because I would go for drives. I live close to Jones Beach on Long Island, and
Hmm.
there's a parkway, Ocean Parkway, and it's literally along the ocean. So I'm driving along the beach, and it's so soothing to put on some music and just kind of just look at the scenery while, of course, you're paying attention to the road and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's really mentally healing. So how many Taco Bell trips did you make over the last couple of months?
Oh my gosh, during quarantine, I'm not even gonna lie, I went like twice a week. Yeah, like, oh, and I
Wow.
never, yeah, and I'm like a big budget person, so I would never like spending money out on food. You can ask all of my friends, they'd be like, it's rare that Melissa like goes out to dinner or something. But quarantine, I was like, I need to get out this house. So I would be like, where can I go? And I just love Taco Bell. So I would just make my trips out there.
I didn't mind quarantining inside. Everyone's different, obviously. I just
Hmm.
started, just playing a lot more video games because when I was working and just kind of moving so fast, pre-COVID, I never got a chance to kind of just exhale. I was always moving a million miles a minute. So I think this
Yeah.
time, oh, I'm inside. I can't really hang out with people. Let me just play some more video games, and I think it really helped me.
Yeah. That's a nice way to put it too, right? You just got to slow down. I think when I was working, it was um really hard to do that because I felt like since we made the switch to virtual learning so fast, like I spent so much of my time just like prepping and like preparing the next day's lesson, and it was just like such long work days. I think when I really slowed down was when the school year ended and I was like, oh, I can finally enjoy this quarantine.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I think you have a good outlook on it, even with all you've been through, because now it's just this is what we're dealt, and we just kind of have to work through it, and we just have to
Mm-hmm.
find our methods of working through it. But everyone has some people have difficulty finding that, and I think that's what we
Yeah.
have to achieve. Now, because I feel like a lot of people, I'm seeing online. I see some are saying if you guys didn't start a business or do this, do that, you're wasting your time. But I think that's
Yeah.
nonsense because everyone needs to kind of take this time to kind of unwind and just self-reflect, not start a business or
Yes.
whatever. You know what I mean?
Yes, I saw that quote too. It was like, you need to take this time to start a business or work on, or like learn a hobby or learn a new skill. And I was like, we're literally in the middle of a pandemic. This is not the time to start a business unless you really like want to, you know what I mean? But we shouldn't be like shaming people for not coming out of this quarantine with awesome new skills and an entire new business when we're in the middle of a pandemic. People are losing their jobs. It's stressful. Like, places were closed at the time. Nobody, it was so much uncertainty. Like, you just have to take it one day at a
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So tell me about your role as CEO of Ricky's Compass.
time. I feel like I'm like it's the CEO, and my team was like, you need to take that title, and I was like very like shy about it. I was like, oh really, you think so? And they were like, yeah, my team really pushes me in and like encourages me. So I would like to think that they like gave it to me. But I we plan our meetings. So I kind of like, I think of a lot of ideas, and my team does too. And we just bring them to life. I think it's really a team effort. Like, I have the title CEO, but I would never be able to do anything without like Giselle and Alexis. They really like, if I come up with something, Alexis like, hey, this is how we should like market it, and Giselle is like, yeah. Giselle has like the best input when it comes to like, yeah, and we should like be mindful of how this person might see, how that person might see it. Think about this piece of advice that we should add to it. Lex is like, this is how we should type up the caption. And I'm just like, hey, like, I could never do it without any of them. So I think it's really a team effort.
So since the inception, how much of the stigma surrounding mental health do you think you've shattered?
That's a good question. I think that I would never be able to like actually tell you like a percent or a number, but I think, I think everybody that I encounter, I've definitely been able to at least open their mind about mental health. I've been able to at least like shift their perspective a little bit. So even if they don't understand completely what mental health is, or what like a severe mental health disorder might look like on somebody, I think that they understand. I kind of humanize it for them. So I feel like the stigma is definitely a bit less everywhere I go. And everywhere that we talk about it, I think that we come across as like humans. Like, we're not these like know it all people that are here to just like regurgitate facts at you. Like, we're human, and we're here to help you understand what stigma is and how to get rid of it. And if you mess up, like you say something and you think you offended us, like, you're not gonna, because we're here to teach you and to learn. So I think that everywhere that I've gone, I feel like I've definitely, made a difference and have really shifted people's perspective on their view of mental health.
Do you feel like those within your inner circle and those who follow Ricky's Compass, do you feel like you've made a difference with them, even if it's just one person?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think that now, like, um, me and one of like my best friends, Miriam. So she was talking to me about about a specific person, and she's like, "Yeah, I think that they like." She's like really shy, but I think it's more than that. I think it's like maybe she's like dealing with something. And what made me so proud was she was like, I think that, I'm not telling you this to judge her or tell her anything that like she's weird. I just think I want to find the best way that I can help her. Like if I should tell her that maybe she should try out therapy or something, that's what I want to do. So, it's really like I see it like little pieces of it in all of my friends, just the way they talk and the way they view like people now. They think like, oh, maybe instead of maybe she's just like really shy or maybe she's just like weird, it's like maybe they're going through something and maybe I can help them. So I definitely think that, the whole team has definitely impacted people.
And I can say you definitely impacted me because when Alexis came on the show, she was using phrases like died by suicide instead of committed suicide. And
Mhm.
that was kind of like, whoa, it kind of blew my mind because I never thought of it like that. Like I didn't think like the way we use certain words, can add to the stigma of mental health. Like it's not a crime to do so, even though you're taking your own life. But
Mhm.
it's yeah, we have to be kind of cognizant of how we're going about saying these things because again, by saying you're committing something, you're criminalizing it. And it
Yes.
really kind of yeah, it kind of woke me up. It got the light bulb in my head like, wow, maybe I need to
Yeah.
change how I speak about these things.
Yeah, vocabulary is so important, and I think that's like always something I've been aware of, because I was in school for special ed, so they were like, it's not an autistic child, it's a child with autism because it's like person first.
Mm.
So that's the same thing. Like when my brother was diagnosed, he's not schizophrenic, he's a person with schizophrenia, you know. And it's not like, oh, hey, like that's my brother, the schizophrenic. So it's just being mindful of how we talk about people and how we view them, because the way we speak about somebody really tells how we perceive them. And I think that starting with how starting with our vocabulary is one of the simplest, and it's free. So it's a simple free way to shatter the stigma.
And it's also a process. It's not
Mhm.
you're not
Mhm.
going to change how you view it in one day. I'm still
Right.
learning how to discuss these things, and we're all still learning as a
Yeah.
society. As long as we don't stop learning, then we'll be okay.
Yeah, and I think as long as you're like genuine about your intentions, you're fine. Because even like Lex and G and I will still mess up. It's not like, hey, I want to be a mental health advocate, and now all of a sudden, like, I have perfect vocabulary and I know all of the new terms. No, it's just like learning every day, and I'm so open to being like corrected. Um, I don't know everything, and I know that I don't know everything. So if somebody else wants to teach me, I'm so willing to do that.
Tell me about the scholarship you guys gave out.
So the scholarship, we had been wanting to do it for, I think like since we started, but I don't know why. I think this was the first year we gave it out, so it's our second year of being an organization. We contacted our local high school, so that's Morristown High, because that's where Rick went, and that's where I went, and that's like where my whole family went. So we wanted to put a scholarship in the high school to honor Ricky, and it was for anybody that was pursuing a degree in the mental health field. So it could be a social worker, psychologist, therapist, like even like a nurse that works on the psychiatric floor, like anything like that. And it was $1,000, and we actually got it matched by a generous donor. So we have another one for this upcoming year in 2021. And it's just like the requirements are really simple. So as long as you meet the GPA, and as long as you're going to a 2 or 4 year institution for that type of degree, um, you can qualify. And it was so awesome to be able to give it to a senior this year. His name is Ryan, and he is going to Seton Hall to study psychology. So I was so happy to be able to give that to someone. I think education and getting people educated is such an amazing way to create direct impact. because then we're getting people out there that actually care about the topic and that are actually going to be, you know, making literally like impact on those people, on those clients, on those families. So I was so happy to be able to do that, and I hope to continue to be able to do that and raise the amount.
Tell me some of the things that you and Ricky's Compass are trying to accomplish, at least by the end of 2020 or for 2021.
So we have some we were just talking about it like last week. So for the end of just like this year, like 2020, 2021, we wanted to have some fundraisers, and these fundraisers would be for two different things that we want to do in the organization. So one of them is a fundraiser to collect funds to pay somebody's therapy sessions. So some employers, like I'm blessed to have an employer that actually will pay for like 10 free sessions, but we know that some people don't have insurance, some therapists don't take insurance. So we would love to cover like 10 sessions for somebody. So maybe like connect with a local counselor in our area and say, hey, like we have this amount and we want to cover 10 sessions for somebody. So that's one thing we want to do. And then the other one is, like I mentioned before, so we already are have $1,000 match for this year's scholarship, but I do want to raise it to 1,500. So that's like another $500 that we're working towards raising for the scholarship. So those are two big things that we're hoping to accomplish this year.
Yeah, and I think you guys are doing very important work, and I think the sky is the limit. You know, giving away a scholarship is huge. $1,000 is not nothing. You know, I got $1,000 scholarship when I graduated college, and I think that's great because books are expensive. So I can't
Yes,
wait to
yes.
see what you know work for to next year. So you're a sixth grade teacher, and you're a sixth grade teacher in the age of COVID. So
Yes.
which is a totally different ball game. What are some of your initial thoughts of the current state of teaching in general?
Um, I think it is so hard. The first week, I literally cried because I was so stressed. The week hadn't even started, like the kids hadn't even come in. All we were doing was professional development, and I was already like fried. Like my brain was like, I can't do this. But it was just because they were like, okay, so my district's doing hybrid learning. So they were like, so you're gonna have half of the kids come in and the other half's gonna be on Google Meet, and then you're gonna have a track that's fully virtual. And I was like, how am I going to do that? Like, so there's going to be kids in front of me, and then I'm going to have my computer, and they're going to be on Google Meet, and I have to be able to fully engage and pay attention to everybody. And they were like, yeah. And I was like, how? And they're like, we're not going to tell you how. You just figure out whatever is best for you in your classroom. And I was like, what the heck? Like, first of all, this is technically like my first full year as a teacher. So it's not only like, is it my first full year, but it's my first year while a pandemic is happening and the education system is completely flipped upside down. So I was so overwhelmed. It's so hard. But honestly, like the classroom time with the kids makes it better. Being in a mask sucks, and staring at a screen all day. This is not how learning was meant to be. But the thing about teaching is that regardless of whether I'm happy or not, I have to be happy in the classroom.
Was there any kind of, for lack of a better term, training or some sort of orientation of sorts about the virtual technology that you're going to have to use?
So not I like there wasn't like specific training like, hey, this is what you're gonna use, like, and I'm gonna give you like step by step on all the cool things that you can do with it. It was just like, hey, you're gonna use Google Meet, and then you're gonna upload like all of your work to this platform called Canvas. And then all the new teachers got training on it, but like none of the training was required for like anybody else. So they did offer a lot of trainings over summer, but it wasn't like, hey, you have to do this. And especially as like a new teacher, I didn't know I was supposed to sign up for them. So I just kind of went in during PD, and they were like, they just threw all of like the basics at me, and they were like, don't worry, just take it day by day. But it wasn't like, hey, here is what you're going to do. This is what your classroom's going to look like. This is how we suggest you do it. So it was kind of just like a free for all.
Do you agree with that? Like how that kind of worked out? Like just kind of go out there and see what happens, or would you have preferred some sort of game plan as like a district? Even though teachers do things differently, every teacher's different,
Mhm.
but do you wish there was some sort of like collective game plan of how to like execute this properly?
I think they tried, like, I think they tried to be like, hey, like, use Google Meet, but I think that nobody actually knew what, like, the classroom was gonna look like. So I think that's why it was, like, hard for them. But it would have been, at least if, like, they did what you suggested, like, hey, this is kind of like the universal way that we want you to set up your classroom, it would have definitely taken a lot of the stress out of it, because that's what I was stressing about. Like, I didn't care how well decorated my classroom was at the time. I was like, how am I going to set up, like, so that everybody's 6 feet apart and, like, still facing the projector, and I can still interact with my Google Meet, and still be able to hear them and everything. Um, that would have been nice to have, just like, here, try this, or like, here's some options. But it's kind of like, just see what setup works for your classroom. And now that I'm in the classroom, I have found a way and it works for me. So I guess it did end up working out regardless, but it just would have saved me so much stress in the beginning.
It seems to me like you don't have to give an opinion on this if you don't want to. I don't want to jeopardize your job or anything like that. It seems to me like um, some, at least in the city, what I've been seeing from the news and stuff like that, it's like their focus was to just get people in school, but no real discussion of like how we're going to do it and what, like you said, how the classroom is going to look like. Is all the kids equipped with the certain software and materials necessary? Are the teachers well equipped? I don't know. I guess for me, I get you can agree with this too, that everything should kind of be shut down until we figure out how we're going to do it, and then kind of roll out a plan. Not just say, okay, here's a date, we're all going to be in, we're going to clean the schools, we're going to social distance, whatever, and just figure it out. That's kind of terrible because we see how like that's not working because
Yeah.
some kids are and staff people are testing positive. And at least here in New York, there no one's inside yet, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think I think when they said that we were doing hybrid learning, I think everybody was like scared, because it's like you said, I mean, um they were like, we're doing hybrid learning. We were like, okay, so how are we going to do it? And honestly, the whole summer, nobody knew anything. Like, we had no idea how any of it was going to work. Nothing. And so when I walked in for training, like September 1st, because we start September 1st, then they explained everything, and still it was like, this is like insane, you know? Like, if you walk into the building, so if you walk into my classroom, there's literally like only 8 desks, and they're all 6 feet apart, and like the kids never interact with one another. So they all wear masks, and they're all sitting there, and I try to make like my classroom as like fun, and I talk to them and ask them how they're doing, but it's definitely, hard. And I think with teaching, I did say that in the beginning, I wish they would have just like picked one way or another. Like you said, just shut down and figure it out, because I think that putting so many people in a building and having barely a plan for what to do is a little irresponsible. But I think my administration did as much as they could. And I do think that, ultimately, as like a first year teacher, I didn't really have like a choice in it, especially as like a young teacher. I was like, well, I'm just going to go in and do my best. And, just have the best attitude towards it that I can, because I don't like have an option, like I'm not tenured. Like I could technically like lose my job at the end of the year. So I was like, I'm just going to go in and do the best job that I can.
Aside from the obvious, what are some other concerns that you've had going into the school year?
So some of it was just like, so some of our students are all virtual. So like a big thing with teaching is like developing relationships with your students. So that was like one thing I was worried about. I was like, how am I gonna like develop these genuine connections with kids completely over a screen? Um, so that was hard because I want them to be able to open up to me and to, tell me if they have problems going on at home, and maybe that's why they have to keep like the camera off during Google Meet, or if they have bad connection because like their parents can't pay for it and they're somewhere else. Like, how do you develop those that personal connection over a Google Meet? And not only that, like students with that have disabilities, it's so hard to be in a room and just stare at the screen, and you know like everything's online. Like nothing's paper anymore. It's not simple, just like, hey, write your name, fill out number one, and then hand it back into me. It's like, no, write your name, make a copy of it, put it into your ELA folder, and share it with me. So it's already like 5 steps before you even do the assignment. Like, it's just so much. There's like so much I could say about my concerns. Like the kids that are in class, if they have a question about work, but then the next 2 days they're virtual, it's so hard to catch them up. Or the kids that were virtual, if their connection's lagging and they miss something, it's almost impossible unless I make the extra time, like outside of my hours, to walk all those students through the lesson again. So there's like a lot of things about virtual learning.
And I think like this is only like my opinion.
Hmm.
Maybe the Department of Education or some of the local governments, maybe they thought that this was going to be just like reopening a restaurant. Like, okay, we have a limited capacity, and all the staff are masks, and people come in and come out. But in schools, we have people in a certain area for like a couple hours a day, and you have to think about not only the children, you have to think about the staff and all the faculty and everything like that. So I feel like we said before, like I said before, there was no real plan. It's just we need to have kids in school. We need to have kids in school. But like, like you said, there's a lot of people that probably can't afford a decent internet connection. And there'll always be issues there. But I think what I have not seen is a discussion on funding a lot of underrepresented, families that may not have the financial means to kind of support remote learning, even though that's the most safest option. A lot of people are saying, well, kids have to go, people have to go to work, and who's going to take care of the kids and whatever. And that's all true. But I think at least from the federal level, there needs to be some funding there to make sure that this doesn't happen. And that's what we need to discuss, representation. And that's not really there.
Yeah, that's actually what I was talking about with Giselle and Alexis. I was like, honestly, the only reason that we are opening schools, it's not because we have to open them. You know what I mean? It's not like kids need to be in school right now, because we could have just continued virtual learning. I was like, it's because there are students that, especially in elementary school, that don't have anywhere to go. Their parents can't afford a babysitter or a nanny all day, and so schools, it's like a known fact. They don't just they're not just like an educational place. They're a facility to where people can like put their kids, so that they don't have to pay to watch them. So I think that, like you said, that's a huge factor to why we're open. And there are a lot of schools that don't have the technology to give every student a Chromebook. So even if they were to go virtual, like where would they go to school and learn? So like you said, that's a whole issue that needs to be funded federally. I am blessed to work in Morristown. So actually every kid was given a Chromebook. and if they didn't have like internet, they were given a Chromebook with like a built-in hotspot, and that does help. But regardless, like if you live in an area with like terrible signal, it doesn't solve the problem. But yeah, that's something that I was talking about with Giselle and Alexis. I was like, the reason that schools are open right now is because people don't have a place to put their kids that they can afford.
Yeah, and again, the DOE and the federal government was very adamant about getting kids in school, and it's like, okay, what's your plan? Are you gonna fund? Are you gonna put your money where your mouth is, or are you just gonna just put people there and just see what happens? Because as we've seen at the federal level, 45 has had a lot of rallies in closed indoor arenas, and people have caught COVID from that and have died. Herman Cain.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I'm not really, I'm kind of worried for people like you, teachers. They're just kind of thrown into the fire, and and that's terrible. That's really fucked up.
Yeah, I feel like teachers, like, we're always, it's so funny, we're always like, you guys are heroes, you guys like change the world, you guys like build up the future, but then we're like, we're not I don't know, there's so many things, like so many resources that we lack to be able to do all of those things. It's like such a, I don't know, it's like such a occupation where like people are like, yes, go teachers, like teachers are the backbone of society, like they help every other, like, they help students decide what to be, and they create great minds, and they, foster learning and imagination. And it's like, okay, so where's all the funding to do all of these awesome things? you know it's like, where's all the support from the government, instead of like hating on teachers for not wanting to go back into a building? So I
Put your
think,
money where your mouth is.
yeah.
That's it. So from a mental health standpoint, how do you think this teaching during COVID or being in school during this time will affect staff and students?
I think it's already like affected so many staff. I mean, like, I myself, excuse me, I was like drinking sparkling water. I myself, I feel stressed like a lot, like way more than I thought I would. Like when I got this job, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be like, I knew it was a hard job, but I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be like way happier because I finally got this. Like, this is what I worked all my college career for, to become a teacher. And now that I'm here, I'm like, this is insanely hard. Like, I always knew it was gonna be hard, but this is like, I have to teach to basically like two different classrooms at the same time, and I still have to make sure that everybody's engaged. I want everybody to be happy, I want everybody to be learning in my class, I want everybody to feel comfortable with me. So it's like, it's like a lot to juggle, and the to-do list is like never ending. So I feel like once the weekend hits, I just like want to turn my brain off. I'm like, hey, you have to make some separation between your work and your real life, or you're never going to stop working. Like, there's always something to do with online learning, an email to check, a kid to catch up on, modules to make. And then for students, I think it's so hard. Like, so today we did a lesson, and I asked them a couple questions on like what they about language arts and what they wanted to do. And like most of the questions were, are we ever going to work in groups, are we ever going to work in pairs? So it's like kids miss socializing with each other. The cool thing about like going to middle school is that you get to meet so many other people, you get to meet so many teachers, you get to just make new friends that you would have never had. And this is really not letting them do that. It's not letting them be kids, it's not letting them talk to one another. Like, one of the things that you never think that you would miss when you're a teacher, but it's all the like the little side conversations, and hearing about their social life, and hearing about what they're doing on the weekend. And you don't get to hear that when everybody's 6 feet apart, and then half the class is on Google Meet. And not only that, but it's hard to navigate all your learning online. Like, every single thing is online. So that could be so frustrating to some kids. Like, yeah, it's good that they're going to be like technologically advanced, but it's like, hey, sometimes it's just good to get pen on paper. Like sometimes just that's just the easiest way to get a kid to learn, to actually like get the material into their brain. So I think there's a lot of mental health effects, that this has.
Yeah, and it's kind of unfortunate. This is kind of a wait and see. Luckily there hasn't been any kind of serious outbreaks with COVID with schooling so far. At least in my area, there's been a few positive cases, but no real spread, which is very important. So we kind
Hmm.
of have to take this day by day and still be as safe as possible. But I still worry about teachers, and yeah, they're the true heroes in our society right now. Them and nurses and medical
Yeah.
staff and psychologists and stuff like that. So I definitely root for you guys, and I thank you, Melissa, for being on my little underground. And where can people follow Ricky's Compass, plug your website and your YouTube channel as well?
My YouTube channel. So you guys can find Ricky's Compass on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. So on Instagram, we are Ricky's Compass CP. CP because that was like we started as a community project, and some random band is named Ricky's Compass, and they haven't used like their account in years. So I was trying to get the name, but they haven't given it up. So Ricky's Compass CP on Twitter and Instagram, Ricky's Compass on, and then just plain old Ricky's Compass on Facebook and YouTube.
Great. Thank you so much, Melissa. I hope you go to as many Taco Bells as you can this weekend before school
Thank you
starts.
so much. You too. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, thanks, Melissa.